Hey, so Dirk, guess what we have this time?
What do we have? Oh, that's right. We have Munchies. it's finally an actual movie Munchie party.
I want to tell you a story. Earlier this week, I was talking with one of the teens.
Ooh, what did the teens say?
So the teen comes up to me. He's like, Mr. Brooks, you seen Interstellar? I'm like, yeah, I've seen Interstellar. It's like, it sucks. Worst movie I've ever seen. It's like, there weren't even aliens. It was the worst. I hated it. It's like, oh man, I guess I'm glad you have strong opinions. He's like, yeah, I want to assassinate whoever made it. Like, this is strong. Do I need to write this up? So then I think about it. I'm like, so do you hate The Dark Knight too? He's like, what? What are you talking about? I love The Dark Knight. It was the best. Like, did you know that the same guy made both those movies? And he just, like, I blew his mind. He just stops and he's like, damn, what do I do?
You probably just completely melted his mind at that point, and he just couldn't. He literally couldn't even at that point.
That is true. Now, as we're talking about Christopher Nolan, we all know that he started in independent films that he made. So let's bring up our topic. What a good segue I just made.
That was probably the smoothest segue we've ever done. But we're going to talk about some independent movies today.
And we actually have a special guest, listeners.
That's right. And he's I would say he's pretty qualified to talk about independent movies. We've got Jonah Crismore. He's the director of the Cinema Center here in Fort Wayne. So welcome, Jonah.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to talk about that. And following is Christopher Nolan's best film. Just so you know.
I actually wrote a paper about following and comparing. This was right before. This was like a couple weeks before Batman Begins came out, and I got 2 solid paragraphs about on one door there's a Batman sticker in following.
Oh, yeah.
And I gotta fill some pages. And hey, maybe it was on purpose that he did that.
It was subliminal. He's like, I want this job.
It's like a Pixar Easter egg, but
Yeah.
IRL, as the kids say.
Retweet that. So I guess we should probably start. What makes an independent movie an independent movie?
Is that throwing the ball over to me, or am I like?
Yes.
An independent movie is actually, it's kind of interesting because it's one of those it's one of those themes that I think is a bit like how the Supreme Court describes porn. They know it when they see it. Technically, an independent movie is made outside of the studio system. That, but there's also kind of there's a lot of movies that are made outside of the studio system that you may say are still big budget films, and that's kind of where I think a differentiation is usually made between independent art house, independent just movies that eventually a bigger studio or distributor are going to pick up. So here at Cinema Center, we mostly show the art house fare, which are films that are made through independent funding. They have to go through the pre-production, the production phase, and the post-production phase, all on somebody's dime that either the director or other funders have put into it, and then they take it out to market in the film festival world, and it's picked up. And if it's successful, usually it's picked up by a distributor. Sometimes, however, and it's becoming more and more common now, that people are self-distributing, just like through books and things like that, through iTunes and other streaming platforms. So that was a little too much. I'm sorry. I kind of unveiled my whole world on
Well, I think we're done here, so thanks for listening.
Now, I think our listeners would like to know where we are recording from.
So yeah, we are in the Spectator Lounge, and this actually used to be a part of an organization called ArtLink here in Fort Wayne, and I've heard, rumor has it, that there were some naked folk in here because they used to have live model drawing in here. So we're in kind of a racy spot.
Yeah, this should just be on those the Bureau of historical landmarks like the Rialto and the Cat of Blue, you know.
I mean,
The Fillmore.
Yeah.
naked people stood right where we are podcasting,
Man,
like for hours at a time.
if these walls could talk, am I right?
So, I recall growing up. Now, I worked at a single screen movie theater and drive-in, and sort of my family sort of ran it. And my dad was real big into letting me watch movies that I probably should not have at a young age. And so, like a lot of like independent horror movies, this was not uncommon. So like I was aware of what independent movies were, but I feel like the first time that we actually saw a movie, because being a single screen theater in a small town, we didn't get a lot of the non-big studio pictures. Was my dad, for some reason, was really, really excited to take me to go see Pulp Fiction.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow, I don't even think that was on my parents' radar at the time. I mean, I didn't even hear about Pulp Fiction until I was probably a senior in high school, which is probably an abomination, but, you know, better late than never.
For sure, you know, and that's, even there's some discrepancies with that as to how independent that is, you know, of a film. It's definitely independent in spirit, but, you know, I forget the budget, but it's definitely in the tens of millions of dollars, which some people think, well, that really makes you a mid-level film or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not independent either. So.
And the other thing was, it clearly had people that, as a young movie watcher, I recognized. Like, I had seen, well, you know, I recognized John Travolta from, like, Grease and Look Who's Talking, and Bruce Willis from Die Hard and Look Who's Talking. And Jurassic Park's Samuel L. Jackson showing up in a movie where, you know, he doesn't get everything but his arm bitten off. But so it was like, oh, this is like, it's different. Like, it's like, it has people that I recognize, but it's different. And like, actually at the time we saw it at the now for years closed Gateway Dollar Theater. And the movie had played so many places. It was very scratched up. It was as if Grindhouse before Grindhouse.
I was just gonna make that remark.
But like after that, like I wanted to like seek things out. Like I remember being really excited when Fargo came on VHS. I even got the special widescreen VHS with a snow globe.
So how hard was it to find the widescreen?
They sold it at Best Buy.
Oh,
It was. There was a late '90s period where you could buy like VHS widescreens like at like Target.
because I always just assumed like the widescreen VHSs were just this rare find that only very small specific movie stores had them or something.
And for a while it was like a special order type thing, and they're more expensive. But like near the end, like right when like DVD was kind of starting. Like I remember going to Target in Huntington, which is you can look up, you can't, don't quote me on this, but I think the population of the county is like 25,000. Maybe I don't know. But like they were like, you get like Con Air widescreen VHS sitting there right next to regular Con Air, for example. So it wasn't out of the realm of possibility. The first time that we actually showed a movie that would probably be independent at the single screen theater was probably Good Will Hunting, another Miramax movie. And also, I mean, by that point it won Oscars. It had made over $100 million. And, you know, had Robin Williams, who we'd, you know, played Flubber for 4 weeks previously. So it's not like it was completely like, whoa, here's something nobody's ever heard of. Yeah. But again, actually probably the first like true independently made movie that played was probably the Blair Witch Project, which goes back to the horror being the gateway to people experiencing low budget, which I think is probably still true today.
No, I think Blair Witch was what opened up many people's eyes about what independent film was. The fact that it wasn't a huge ad campaign that brought the film in people's consciousness. It was word of mouth. It was just hearing about, you know, this theater saw this movie and it really freaked them out, and where can we find it and everything, and created like the culture of just of almost the film going as an experience, which I think is really important for independent films because they don't have the luxury of sometimes being in 1,000 theaters all at once. So you got to do, you got to have that experience so that people will drive 50, 100 miles to seek out so that they have that something extra.
Yeah, and also with the Blair Witch Project, I mean, there was the mystery of, is it real or is it not? I mean, because when it first came out, people weren't really sure if this was, I don't know, found footage. Because found footage was still pretty young in its, I guess.
It was in its infancy.
Yeah.
It was still wearing diapers.
Yeah, and then from there, it just grew up really fast.
Yeah. Now, the first time I actually came to Cinema Center was to see Being John Malkovich, which from that point on, I was like, I'm seeking out movies that are more independently made. But again, that has recognizable names. I mean, it had Con Air's John Malkovich, right? And John Cusack. They're both there. It's like a reteam.
It's amazing.
I did not plan that reference to work out, but it does because... Wow, I did. Okay, full disclosure, I did plan the Look Who's Talking, but Con Air was natural.
Yeah, I'll probably keep that in.
My explanation?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Dirk, you didn't even know about Pulp Fiction until you were a senior in high school. My dad took me to see it when I was in 8th grade. Now, I'm older than you, so what's your experience with seeing independent movies?
Oh, man, seeing independent movies. I really didn't see, the thing with me is I didn't start becoming very interested in movies until I'd say freshman or sophomore year in college. I mean, I'd go see movies all the time when I was a kid.
Well, there's plenty of talk about you going to see Bicentennial Man and Paycheck.
And you can tell when I was younger I had impeccable taste in movies, but I didn't really start to go see movies as I don't know, not like a hobby. That's not the right word to say, but like I didn't appreciate film as much when I was younger as I did when I got into college. And so I felt like at that point in my life, I felt like I had a lot of catching up to do. And so, at that point I had seen Pulp Fiction, and then I started watching a lot of the older movies. I'm trying to think what my first indie movie was. It might have been The Squid and the Whale. Like the first one that I can remember is The Squid and the Whale, and I thought that, like, I'd seen the trailer and I thought, oh, that looks kind of quirky, and I'll go see it. I like stuff that's set in the 70s, and I loved it. And is it Noah Baumbach?
Yeah, Noah Baumbach, who, by the way, has a film opening at Cinema Center on Friday, While We're Young, starring Ben Stiller, Adam Driver, Naomi Watts.
The gang's all here.
Yeah.
Make sure that plug stays in when this goes up in like 2 months.
Yeah. We're just as a personal note, this is going to be episode 7, and so. Yeah, because we publish bi-weekly.
Okay.
So by the time it airs, I'll probably have to edit it out because
That's fine.
While we're young. Well, maybe
I say leave it in.
and then we can look back fondly about when While We're Young just started. But from there, then from Noah Baumbach, I started to get into Wes Anderson films, and it was just kind of like a domino effect from there.
Yeah. No, I was in middle school and I saw Clerks for the first time, and that kind of was like, I didn't really know it was independent per se. I just knew it was different. Like I never had it was black and white. The camera hardly moved, and people were talking like I never really heard talk in a movie before. And it just that definitely kind of like opened up my eyes a little bit, even though I wasn't quite for sure what I was watching at the time. So.
Well, and I think that's something interesting that made me think of like when I was younger, I didn't discern things as independent or studio. Like a movie was a movie.
Yep.
And so as I started to get into film a little bit more, that's when I started to realize, there are these smaller movies that were just put on by the director, or they had a group of people that came together to make it, and then here's a big budget film that has the backing of this big corporation.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think then after that, it became kind of obvious, okay, well, this is obviously an indie movie, and
Yeah,
I don't know.
for sure.
And there's not as much of it now, but there was a good period where like every major studio had their indie division. So it made the distinction even harder. I mean, but a lot of those aren't. I mean, like Warner Independent Pictures isn't still around, right?
No, Paramount Vantage is no longer with us. Every once in a while they'll release something under that banner, but I mean it's not like the heyday of it. We have Fox Searchlight left. We have Sony Pictures Classics.
Now, can I just say how Sony Pictures Classics logo? I mean, they did it and they stuck with it. It's not the most boring thing ever, by far, but it's
very
Spartan.
Yes, it works. We love Sony over here. Like something that's great is they definitely. Sony is one of the distributors who know what their brand is and they stick with it, and I like it that if a foreign film happens to fall into that brand, they'll take the foreign. That's something that I've noticed over the time, even since I've started. I've been working at Cinema Center now for almost 3 years. It's just that the foreign film market is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which is very, very unfortunate because that's how I think a lot of people also come into film, independent film is through foreign films. And it's just they're looking more for the blockbuster type films that everybody else is looking for. They're looking for The Raid and The Raid 2, which are fantastic movies and everything, but they're also more likely to be shown at a commercial multiplex as well. So.
Now, one thing I've kind of wondered, just from a theater standpoint, is it relatively easy to get a copy of an independent film at an art house theater like Cinema Center, or are there more hoops to jump through to get an indie movie as opposed to like a big studio movie?
It really depends on what on just what it is, on what the situation is. We showed The Interview because that kind of was like it was a huge movie that was made into kind of this movement of independent theaters rallying around it.
Right.
So that was a little different, but it's a give and take with the distributors. They will sometimes contact me and say, hey, are you going to want this film at this time? I would say more times than not, it's more me begging them. Something that's just kind of, unfortunate for the area we're in Fort Wayne, Indiana, is that we have 2 chain theaters who are constantly duking it out against each other, and oftentimes Cinema Center is kind of the collateral damage of that. So we, one will do whatever they can not to make sure that the other one won't get a film, and by doing so means that Cinema Center gets locked out of this.
Right.
So, but we have very good relationships, especially with those distributors that really are independent and cater to the art house crowd. That's the IFC Films, Oscilloscope Laboratories out of New York. Those sort of distributors, I'd say we're the only ones in town that generally show their films.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, and there's also some other times, like when we showed Django Unchained, and that was sort of like, yeah, anybody who wants this film can show it. So that was a very easy-going process
nice.
for it. So.
Man, that was a great movie too. Now, film festivals. Are you like when you go there? Since you're the director of the Cinema Center, let's say you screen a movie, and you really like it. Can you say right then and there, can I show this, or do you have to wait for it to get picked up by a distributor?
Yeah, that's generally the case. Filmmakers don't want anything that could possibly negatively affect a deal coming down the line.
Okay.
And a theater showing it before the distributor has a chance to pick it up can negatively affect them. So, and also film festivals, I mean, that's really the marketplace for distributors. Yes, programmers like me can go and see films, but we really, unless they are not going to go with a distributor, the filmmakers are going to wait until it's picked up before they allow it for exhibition, which is a fancy way of saying seeing it in the theater.
So what have you seen that we need to be looking forward to?
I just came back from the Dallas International Film Festival, which was a really kind of fun, cool festival that's in the Angelica Theater in Dallas, a really pretty multiplex independent theater. So that's cool. It's my dreams having 8 screens dedicated just to independent movies. But a great film that I saw there was there was a couple, but there was a great documentary called Cartel Land, which is about it's basically citizens of towns that have been ravaged by cartels taking up arms themselves because they can't trust the government, they can't trust the police force, and so they're basically creating an armed rebellion against the cartels and having success with it. And it's a very interesting story, an interesting kind of fall from grace story because not to give too many spoilers away, let's just say there's a certain point in the film where corruption starts to seep into their kind of pure movement. Ooh. And it's a really interesting documentary. And from what I've heard, it may be shown on the A&E network. I wasn't quite for sure about how that would work. But that was a great film that was shown there. There's a movie starring Jason Schwartzman called Seven Chinese Brothers, where he basically just plays a drunken asshole through the whole thing. And, it's one of those movies where you don't really think that everything's going to be okay at the end of it, but there's like a glimmer of he kind of realizes that he's an asshole now, and that's enough,
Yeah.
But that was a very small film, it's in scope, I think, of budget and in terms of story, but it's very good. It's very well acted. It's Jason Schwartzman, Olympia Dukakis plays his grandma.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. But yeah, I have a feeling that one is going to be kind of one of these kind of dark horse under the radar films that's going to kind of pick up a following with it. And it's also another example of a film that I don't even know if $100,000 went into making that movie, but it does have recognizable faces in it and everything. Mm-hmm. And even though I think the movie as a whole has maybe 7 characters, it's it's something the story propels it, its resonance with the audience. So that's another great one I saw in Dallas that I think I'm hoping that it will get picked up. I'm almost positive it will get picked up with Schwartzman and Dukakis at the helm there. So.
Well, it's got my ticket purchase already.
Now, if anyone recalls that Regal tried to do the multiplex art house in Fort Wayne for exactly 1 year.
Yep.
I don't remember that.
I was there. I saw many a good film there, and I actually got to say it wasn't before I discovered Cinema Center. I just didn't realize that they were in competition with Cinema Center.
Like it was close to my house, and one of the things I liked about it was the fact there was never anyone else there.
Yeah.
But
I was there.
I was there too. I
glared at you probably. So
Possibly.
I wanted to saw to myself.
Hey, I was all by myself when I saw. Well, I have a couple good stories from there. Once I went with a possibly future guest on the show, Eric Getters. He and I went to go see Murder Ball.
Ooh, nice. Yeah.
What's the term?
Is it like it's the roller derby movie? Well, it's not really roller derby.
No, it's the
wheelchair rugby movie.
Yeah, that's what rugby. And it's us and then 2 other people who are in the back, and we're sitting in the middle, and they just keep talking, and we're just like, man, this is kind of obnoxious. We look around. One of the guys is clearly in a wheelchair, and it's like, we don't want to be jerks and say, hey, can you please be quiet? But also, why are we like, why are we upset? I mean, like, I don't know. It was a weird situation that 10 years on, I'd still think about.
So you ended up not saying anything to the guy.
No, because we felt like, what, maybe, okay, can you be quiet? And then we're like, well, but then what if, like, oh, excuse me, this movie is like more for me than you, or something. I don't know. And you know what? He may not have been. He just was like near the back where, like the wheelchair row.
Oh, so it was unclear whether or not he was actually in a wheelchair. He was just sitting in.
There were two
handicap
guys,
row?
and they were both back there. So that's what I thought. Another time, I had my mom dropped off me, my brother, and my wife. You know, like kids would be dropped off
Naturally.
to go see, like, you know, like the latest talking animal flick. And we went to go see the Aristocrats.
Wait, the Aristocrats or the Aristocats?
They make that joke in there, Dirk.
Do they?
Yeah, there's one. That's the Dirty Joke documentary. So
Oh,
we're
okay.
all.
So I wasn't aware of the Aristocrats documentary.
Yes, it's very filthy.
Well, I would assume so if it was about that.
Yeah, and it's like, hey, Mom, drop us off, and she went like over to Kohl's and picked us up like an hour and 45 minutes later. But yes, I saw many. I have many ticket stubs for movies that I didn't think I would see in a theater, like Primer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the only one movie off the top. I know I've spent pretty much many weekends in screenings there, but The Devil's Rejects, the Rob Zombie horror film, was like
yes.
the only one I can remember off the top of my head that I saw there, and it was a very big deal because I actually got my friends to come with me to see it, and you know, it was a noble failure on Regal's part. I think they were trying, you know, well, I don't even know if it was say noble. You know, they were bringing a lot of good films into Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
But I think that they were grasping at the end of the fad of, like, you know, that was the independent gluttony of films that were out at that time. And, you know, shortly after that was done, then Paramount Vantage folded, and everything else was gone as far as that goes. And and Regal realized, I think, I'm not for sure, it's not like I worked at Regal at the time or anything, but I would imagine they realized that it wasn't a wise investment. So.
And one thing that I noticed was that it was the Holiday 6 Theater, which is still standing, and we can purchase it if you want.
You know, we should.
It doesn't look creepy now at all.
No.
And now that the Banditos next to it is gone, there's nothing else over there.
Well, we can just record podcasts in there, and people will be like, "What's going on in that creepy building?"
We can have 6 podcasts going simultaneously. But they turned it into a $2 theater. Now, the other theaters in town were like $1, $1.50, so it was a little more expensive, but that kept out, you know, all the cheapskates.
All the riffraff.
Yep.
So I liked going there, and then just one day, I was like, I wonder what's showing this weekend, and instead of being, like, they raised the prices. I mean, it was still fairly cheap. I want to say it was like $4 or $5. But they're just like, we're showing like independent movies now, and they did that for, I want to say, exactly 1 year, and then they closed with no fanfare.
Yeah. No,
Just one day, there's like, what's showing this weekend? No showtimes, and I literally drove by, and it was gone. It was over.
Have you ever seen the locally independently made horror film that was shot in there?
Yeah, yes, I have.
Curse of the 13.
Yeah, something 13. Is it Spell of 13?
Oh, it might be Spell of the 13. I thought it was Curse of
Something.
the, Spell of the 13.
That was actually in the Holiday 1 and 2 next door.
Yeah, that's true.
Which was that was like the nicest theater in town, like in the state. Like that's where like the, not that tooting my own horn here, but I have looked at some old newspapers through the archives at the library to find out what showed, and like the 70 millimeter like 6-track sound would always premiere there exclusively.
So what you're saying is, if it were still open, the latest Paul Thomas Anderson or maybe Christopher Nolan movie would be played there.
I mean, all the recent 70 millimeter shot movies, Interstellar, The Master, all of them.
Wasn't Inherent Vice shot in 70 millimeter, or it was just released on a 70 millimeter print?
I don't know if that's true.
I don't think that was
It
shot.
wasn't?
I
All
don't
right, well,
think
I'm going to
so.
strike that from the record.
Well, you can always research it.
No. But like Inherent Vice is a perfect example of like we're like, oh man, like I mean all these other movies are coming out, 3,000 screens, and we're like, when are we gonna get to see Inherent Vice? When's it coming to town? When's it coming to town? Like we were like, oh no, is it good? Do we have to drive to Indy?
Yeah.
What do we do? What do we do?
And thankfully we didn't because the Cinema Center picked it up.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty tuned in, I think, to what most people want in the community as far as the independent films and everything. It's just a matter of politics sometimes as to whether or not I'll be able to get it. And I promise you, it's never my fault. blame those other, I will not mention, chain theaters in town who often, in order just to make sure that the other guy doesn't get it, will make it so nobody can get a film in the area, and just makes it so much more difficult for us.
So they're not even showing it in town?
Sometimes that will be the case. They will. Yeah.
Well,
Sometimes
how do
it's they look at it better to make sure that one market doesn't get it as long as their other markets do get it. So they're like, a film may have middling numbers here in Fort Wayne, but to make sure that the other guys don't get it, they won't show a certain film here, but they know Indy, Chicago, and maybe some of the top 25 markets will get it. Yeah. And
Well, how do they get the authority to say, okay, well, if we're not showing it, nobody can show it?
Money.
Well, in Huntington, we worked at a chain came, and my family were still working at the drive-in, and the chain came in, built a 7-screen theater, and it was the drive-in can't show any movies that we're showing. And that sort of became like this unwritten rule, which like a few years later was like, yeah, there's no actual law on this, so we can just show whatever we want.
Yeah.
But there was a good like 2 years where it's like, oh, well, we can't show that movie because it's showing up at the 7. And then what's even stranger now is that the drive-in has been sold to the same chain that for so long
Really?
tried to lock them out
That's ridiculous.
with the big news that they're going to show the Avengers. And I can guarantee you they're not going to show the Avengers only at the drive-in and not have it at the theater as well.
No, and it's just, it's, it's the money. It's also screen space. When you only have one screen, it's just so great to work with the independent distributors to understand the single screen dilemma, and they're like, look, we just want to make sure that our film is seen. The other people, it's more of a, well, what are you going to do? And there's some distributors that, we have to make sure that we show the film. They're the only ones that get to screen for 2 weeks, and we have to show it so many times throughout the week. It's, it's annoying, but it's also makes it so that we can get it along, if not along with the chains, we get it instead of the chains, which doesn't happen too often, but every once in a while it does. And it is kind of funny when we can always look at a theater screen average on the different reporting websites, and it's kind of interesting. Sometimes we outperform the chain theaters by a lot with a film that we're showing that just caters more to our audience, or there's a film that the chain theaters didn't pick up, we picked up, and then after our run, they pick it up. So it's always something I find interesting is when that happens, and it happens actually quite often. Where especially around Oscar time when those films that people were maybe just didn't for whatever reason pick up. Whiplash played here forever before the chain theaters picked it up, and then we had really great numbers, and I'm guessing, I'm willing to speculate that had some that played a little bit into their decision to carry it.
So any titles that didn't get a play in town because of this silly agreement?
Well, I don't know.
What did I miss out on seeing theatrically?
I'll discuss that with you afterwards.
Ooh.
Scandal.
No. It's just, and sometimes too, it's not even. It's, it's either we don't get to film at all, or it will be, we could have gotten this 3 weeks ago, and now we have to wait for you
Okay.
guys to deal with all your BS and now we can finally show it. And
Mm-hmm.
that happens probably more often than not, but it's still annoying, especially when everybody is seeing, you know, why does Indy, Chicago, and all these places nearby have this film? Why does Bloomington have it, and we don't? So yeah, that's an issue that we come across relatively. It's not a ton, but you know, every once in a while there's a film where it's like, yeah, it's in that sweet spot of it's going to get business, not necessarily Fort Wayne business, or Fort Wayne business will be kind to it, and it needs to, you know, whatever happens to it. I know I'm just rambling. So,
Well, how has the switch to digital impacted like the choices of things that you've been able to program, or the like maybe timeliness of being able to get it closer to when it came out?
It's been great for us. Going digital was the single best thing for programming since I've been here, in terms of we no longer have to wait for a 35 millimeter print to be available. A lot of independent films that were on 35 millimeter, they did not have very many prints ever made, and it made also planning almost impossible, because every once in a while we'd get the call, hey, this little theater in Cleveland still is doing well with the print. We can't send it out. We're not sending it out to you until they're done with it. So the movie we thought were opening on Friday is no longer going to be here now, and it's Tuesday, and we got to figure out what we're going to do now. You know, so it's also made things in general more timely, because we do have some flexibility. While we're young, we didn't know for sure we were going to show that until the Monday before the Friday had opened, and you know, because we're digital, we didn't have to worry about where the print was or anything like that. It was, okay, you're booked, and the drive was sent, you know.
Oh, nice.
So is there any issues with like screen counts? They're like, oh, we're only having it on it's only on 100 screens. You can't have it till yet, or is that an issue still?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the term platforming. Is that?
Oh,
yeah. No, I mean, honestly, since you worked in the theater, I was just wondering if you.
Yeah, we pretty much only showed things that opened on over 2,000 screens.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, platforming is, for you guys who don't know, is for, you know, it opens New York, Chicago, and then it's in top 25 markets, and then it's maybe college towns, and it's, you know, cinema centers. Unfortunately, since it's in Fort Wayne, Indiana, sometimes when they do platform a film like that, we're kind of on the last leg of the tour. You know, after they're all old and haggard, and and the reason why is just because usually it's marketing and advertising isn't necessarily the hugest amount that the film's budget was put into, so they want word of mouth to carry it through. Okay. It just kind of depends on what model the distributor's using for it. I would say that it's kind of more seasonal. You get more of those type of films are like the Oscar films, when they're really hesitant to put a ton of money in, because they're hoping that Oscar buzz is going to carry it through and do its own thing. But yeah, I mean, we can at least start a negotiation after, I'd say, well, really at any time, but really we don't get concrete numbers or dates until after, you know, it's been out, at least in its limited in New York and Los Angeles, and they can kind of see what its per screen average is, which is, that's really how independent films are determined by their success. It's not done by, you know, total grosses like you do for the big budget films. It's by per screen average. How well does it do per screening of this film?
So like the recent example, also horror, of It Follows, which originally was going to go to video on demand, and instead they're like, let's put it into 1,000 theaters. So how did I guess when did they make that decision, and when were you able to book it, or how did that work with that such a short amount of time? Like, it was like they had the plan and they're like, let's not do that.
Yeah, for It Follows, that one was more of we were bugging them and bugging Radius to show the film, and then because we still were getting, even though we knew it was going on demand, we were still getting requests, and we're like, well, we're still going to get an audience for this. I mean, it's crazy. And then we started seeing the numbers, and we're like, bugged them even more. And then Carmike got it, and then when they got it, we were like, I was pretty much sure that we weren't going to get it. But I still bugged them. And finally they said, actually, Radius Weinstein is just giving this over to the Weinstein Company. We have a really good relationship with the Weinstein Company. Weinstein Company said, sure, you can have it. And so we got it a week after Carmike, but it still did really, really well. And it's actually tonight's its last night. As the night of recording is the last night that we're showing it. We kept it, almost, I think, 4 weeks. So.
Oh, wow. That's a good run.
Yeah. It did very, very well, and what I liked about it is it brought in people who never been to the Cinema Center before, which is something that I wish every film can do. There's certain films that I just know Cinema Center members are going to really, it's going to really appeal to them. And our members are the people who come, to pretty much all of our screenings all the time. But it's great when we have these films that have a wider appeal and just bring in people who are, from all over the area, and they just like it that we're happen to have an 11 o'clock screening of this horror film, and they want to come out and experience that. Plus, we have booze, and that always,
And having seen it on a screen, it's like I can't even, it just wouldn't have had the same impact watching it at home.
No, and the model, I mean, it's one of the few times where, a film was originally going to be on the streaming platforms, and that was taken out in order to be put on screens. Which is funny because Radius did that exact opposite last year with Snowpiercer. Yeah. They, that was supposed to go on 1,000 or so screens, and then they realized, it's a lot cheaper if we just put the streaming and we're making the same amount of money, and went that way with it.
Does streaming affect the numbers of people who come see it in the theater, or is it, or is that even, can you even judge that?
You really can't judge it too much. It's kind of funny. Tim League, the owner of the Alamo Draft House, I was at set at this conference that I go to. It's like, we're not competing with streaming services. We're competing with all the other stuff where people go out of their house to do. So, sometimes I'm a strong believer in that philosophy. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I think, if people are going to get this cheaper at home, they're going to do it that way. It's interesting because there's some distributors that put everything out day and date, as it's called, which means it's available for streaming the same day, and we still get strong numbers for it. It just kind of depends on what the movie is. And there's other films where, it may not do well, but there's no way of knowing if it was streaming that did it or it just wasn't the movie, that was speaking to the public.
Well, I think that people still want to have that experience of being in a theater and seeing the movie on a big screen and having the immersive audio. It's sure you can watch a movie on your 72-inch TV, but it's still not the same as having that collective kind of experience with a bunch of other people. And
and especially a horror film. I mean, there's that great feeling of we're all, the great moment when you all got scared at the same time, and then you realize it and you all kind of laugh. That's it doesn't really ever happen in all, sitting and watching it at home,
Because I watched The Babadook at home, and I really wish I would have seen it in a theater.
Yep, and we did show that.
And see, I actually saw it. I first saw it at someone's house, and then I came and saw it here at the Cinema Center. And I must say, a movie is, I think especially horror films are best viewed on a big screen.
For sure. And it's just something too in general about the idea, that you're in an environment where you are supposed to be getting rid of, you're not supposed to have those distractions. I say as we all look at our phone and stuff, and where the outside world can't come into. It's dark. You're not supposed to be on your phone. You're not supposed to be talking to other people. You're not supposed to be knowing what's going on. You're all experiencing the same thing together as a community and as a tribe of people who love movies like that. I think that is something that's the reason why I don't think the theater experience is going to go away. I think it's going to evolve. I think that there's going to be a lot of changes to it, especially in the next 10 years or so, but it's due for a change. I mean, the model hasn't changed all that much since Adolf Zucker, owned all the theaters in the 1920s, and stuff. So it's that's fine. Change is okay. I don't really believe all the naysayers who just say the theatrical experience is going to be dead. Especially when they're like, it's going to be dead next year, and it's I know of people who, if they had the chance to buy tickets to all 6 of the next Star Wars films in IMAX, they're going to do that.
Me being one of those people.
And I mean, the other thing, it didn't change for so long. There have been so many changes, but still the basic setup is the same. I mean, we were working at the drive-in in like the early 90s. We were getting these reels that clearly had been in use since the 70s. Or before. Like, everything was really beat up. It was just, and we were still using carbon arcs for light up until 1992, and there are probably places that still do that, actually.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it's just, you go, you get your ticket, you sit down, you watch a movie on a screen. I think, if anything, we've learned that Cinema Center should probably exclusively show horror movies now.
Yeah. Well, I will use this point, I guess, because I think will be good. If you're interested in different programming at Cinema Center, check out our website. We have a new program starting called NSFW, called Not Safe Fort Wayne.
Ooh.
And it's we're going to be showing a variety of different things, but it's more of the edgier stuff. It's going to be more of the midnight screenings and things like that. So we may show some repertory type stuff within that. We may show brand new things, because there is a huge appetite for genre films out there, and the art house experience, I don't think, needs to be exclusively for those who love, the more Merchant Ivory type films,
Are they still around? Do they still?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Bergman films and stuff like that, those films are all great, and I love the audience that we cater to them and showing those type of films. But, there's so many people, especially younger people, who beg for, like, the weird... a weird Romanian horror film or something like that really wouldn't work in our normal programming. But with this program, I think it's going to have a spot there. And I think the success of, so much to the Babadook. I think the Babadook had kind of a crossover. I think a lot of people who weren't normally horror people were still like, yeah, I'll still give it a chance, because they, it was on NPR every 2 seconds, it seemed like. So.
And across the street, there was from my house, there was it was probably just like some clothes, but it really looked like the Shadow of the Babadook every single night.
Yes.
And it has since been moved, so, well.
Yeah, but it's, I just think that, It Follows definitely shows that the success of It Follows shows that there's people out there that really connected to genre films, and since we are to be an asset to the community and representative of what they want, we need to make sure that we cater to them as well. So that's something that's coming up is our NSFW series, which is going to have hopefully some new films. It's going to have we're hoping for a mix match bag. We have all kinds of ideas for it, which I'm excited about.
Good. I'm excited for it now too.
Yeah, me too.
And basically from the first time I came to Cinema Center, it's like, I got to come back. It opened up also this was pretty much right around the time like the internet was becoming like a thing you could use for useful things and finding out. But it's like, what's showing next? What do you got?
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. I'm glad. That's I think we kind of ran in the similar trajectory. I kind of discovered Cinema Center in high school, and I don't even know. I think I had a website at the time, and it was very much I had to I'm pretty sure the first movie I saw here was Shadow of the Vampire, John Malkovich.
I saw
Con Air.
I saw Shadow of the Vampire here too, and I was so excited because when's it finally going to come?
Yeah.
When's it going to come to town?
Yes, that's exactly how I was, and I didn't know where to park. My aunt actually owned a coffee shop over there, so I just parked over there, and I said over there. People, I'm pointing like a block away, but that's and but for some reason I'm thinking that I came here actually before that, but I think that may have been the first run film I saw here, and because I'm pretty sure I saw like a re-release of Blood Simple or something like that here. And
There may have been. I know on one of the classes that I took through IPFW, that was one of the movies that was shown, and that was always nice to. Those series, are those still going on?
Yeah, they go on every summer, and actually,
Okay.
kind of, it's pertinent to what we're discussing. This it's going to be, I think, mid-May to like mid-June this year, and it's going to be Indie Wave is the theme. So it's
Okay.
all kind of the whole independent film movement, starting with. I can't believe I'm blanking on it. The motorcycle, Easy Rider, and
Okay,
kind
yeah.
of going all the way through to recent years. So a whole full scope of the whole spectrum of independent films will be discussed by Dr. Michael Kaufman, an English
Oh,
professor.
so he's still doing it.
Yep, at
Right.
IPFW.
I remember one time I don't remember what the series was called, but I believe Terminator 2 was showing. I really wanted to come see it, and I actually was like, hey, is this going to be on film? And like, no, it's just like a DVD. Like I sent like an email.
Yeah, that's the that's unfortunately the way it goes. I mean, just because it's so expensive to get the rights to that and everything. Otherwise, we would show everything in the original way that we could. I was so happy. Last year we showed at the Embassy Theater, which is a local performance space here in Fort Wayne, an old movie house. Used to be a movie palace back in the day when it was called the M. Boyd. Anyway, we showed The Big Lebowski on 35 millimeter, and that was a lot of fun.
Ooh, yeah.
That was very cool to see that print of it, and it was pretty pristine. And I do believe that there are some indications that it may not have been seen since like 1999 or something.
Oh, wow.
Well, what else can you top than Lebowski?
You know what? I think that's a good note to end on.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love talking about this kind of stuff.
Talk to you guys later. No, let's not say that. It sounds like I'm in a phone.
TTYL.
TTYL, LOL.
Hey,
Hearts.
don't forget to send us your questions at moviemunchieparty@gmail.com, and we'll answer them on our grab bag answer bag episode.
That's going to be a really wordy title for me to fit in the grab bag, answer bag, mailbag episode.
All the bags cubed.
Bags cute.